So I've got to the point in my room where I think I've got it sounding the best I've had it so far. I have taken some of the curtains down, so the room's a bit livelier. Definitely increases the reverb in the room slightly, which makes a more natural sound. It increases the amount of detail in the room as well. One of my friends said that curtains, especially heavy curtains, when you're using in a venue, get used to kill frequencies above 500 hertz. And I think that was the thing that I was finding, that with a room full of curtain, everything over 500 hertz was being affected. But with my speakers, everything above 500 hertz should be really alive and really detailed. And it wasn't. It was all there, but it wasn't quite how it should be. So taking the curtains down was a massive change. And then I've played around a lot with my speaker placement over the last kind of 3 weeks. So if you're in my room, the speaker placement used to be about 90 centimeters off the back wall and about 40 to 45 centimeters off the side walls. But then when I've been playing around with the curtains and a few other things, what I did was I moved the speakers forward even more. I moved them forward to be about 1.2 meters off the front wall, and then moved them a lot inward, outward, round, like everywhere, to see. And what I found was actually moving them slightly further out and then towing them in created the best image as well, center image. So now I feel like I've got quite a natural sound with the space away from the wall, and bring them off the back wall and slightly close to the sidewall, but with a toe in. Before, I was almost not toeing them in at all. It wasn't even noticeable how much I was toeing them in, even though it was a tiny small amount. But I think because they were a lot closer together, that was slightly making up for that. Then I've played around with my sub. I always had my sub on the outside of my right speaker. But then as I've kind of got increased the quality and improved everything so much, I found that the bass wasn't quite right. So I moved it. I then even tried it on the side wall in the middle of the room. But one of my friends made a really good point, and he said that, is my room wide enough that a full bass note can go across the room and develop and make it sound like a full note, and it's not either disappearing or reflecting or whatever. So even though I got it almost sounding right with the sidewall sub, what I did was I then put it back in the back corner, played around with it a bit, and got it pretty close to what I wanted it. And then from there, what I did was I started playing with Arc Studio. Pretty close to what I wanted it to sound like, so I thought, Arc Studio, bring it in, play with it, do that, it'll be perfect, or it'll get as close to perfect as I'm going to get it. But everyone knows in hi-fi you don't ever get perfect. It's just degrees of what you've got. I'm going to do a video after this about Arc Studio and my process, what I've found, what's really good, and the 2 or maybe 3 things that I find really frustrating about it. But overall, Arc Studio has been amazing. It's let me go from a normal setup that was having good results to being pretty amazing. The clarity and things like that. It also has helped my bass. Once you get the position of your sub right, then your bass becomes way more musical and it hits way more notes. Obviously, and this is a standard thing, if you've got your sub in the wrong place and you can't tune your room, then the bass starts becoming a bit one-notey. And even though it seems like when you play like certain kind of music, it's great, when you come to other stuff, it doesn't really work that well. So where I'm at the moment is probably the best I've got it sounding. However, now, and this is the point of my video, my last step, the more and more I play with it, the more that's going on, I think and a couple of people I've spoken to have said this, I think that my amp rack being in the front of the room is probably affecting my final product. It's affecting the sound. So my last kind of physical change I'm going to make in the short term is I'm going to move my amp rack back to where my original plan was, which is quite funny. My original plan was to have a gap behind my front speakers, not front speakers, my front chairs, so that the guys in the back chairs still had enough space. They could sit back there. You wouldn't see the rack from here. It wouldn't block anyone's view. And then the guys in the front would have the view. But then what I did was when I got it here, I didn't really like it because I put it across the way. And so what I did was I went, I'm going to move it here. This will be great because the speakers were further back in the room. And the rack sat there for a while. And then I realised if anyone sits in this chair, their view was blocked both visually to the screen and sound-wise to the speakers. So I realised that the side that the door has doesn't have a chair. So I moved it over here. I ran the cable around the other side. Thought it was going to be really good. But now I'm back at this point. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to move my rack behind my chair. The plan is then that I can again use the skirting. So all the cables from the rack will come in at this tiny little point here and will run down the skirting. And there's gaps in both the corners, so anything that needs to come out will come out from the corners. And all I'm going to do is I'm going to move my amplifier to the front and I'm going to move my sub to the other side. That means my speakers can stay in the same position, my sub can be in a similar position but on the other side, and my amp can be on that side and have as little run as possible. And then it also, in the long run, will reduce the amount of speaker cable I'm using as well, because that's probably going to be one of my next upgrades. I'm not doing many more upgrades at the moment because I've just bought 2 or 3 more things for the room. So, but this is where I'm at. So I'm going to do an ARC video next. But then after that, I'm guessing the next video you're going to see the room will have moved again. And I'm hoping what I'll say is it's a noticeable difference. Put the rack over here, run the signal to the amp at the front, subwoofer goes to the other side. There we go. I've also bought a couple more power cables so that all my power cables are the same. I use cord clearway power cables. A couple of them came up online used, so it was the cheapest way to get all my cables to be the same. So I'm kind of going down that way. Yeah, we'll see how that goes. I'm hoping my end effect is I want a big open sound that still has lots of detail. So when things like drums play, they sound like drums, but they sound really big and really natural. And that's what I've been fighting against with the curtains and some of the other stuff that I'd done at the start. It was really loud. It had loads going on, but it didn't sound very big. It didn't sound very open or airy. And I think that's what I've kind of fought back against, which is good. I'm getting there. And I'm almost there. But I'm hoping moving the rack is going to be the last step. And then once I've moved the rack, I'll then rescan with Arc Studio and go from there. And hopefully the results are noticeable and I can explain what happened. Okay, thanks. See you next video.